Good morning. It is 6 a.m. Monday morning, and I will be presenting a theory on accessing the flow state. And the reason I like to give this presentation in the morning so early on a Monday is because what I found in life was that goals really don't care about the progress of or how you're feeling. It has a timeline, and it has to get done by a certain time. But if we can start the week really thinking about the unique flow states that we might have access to because of our work, how much better our life and our work actually does flow. So let's talk about it. Like, that's why we're here, right? So I'll talk. This video is about 30 minutes long. I have nothing to sell you. It is a practice that I've been doing in 2026, doing this presentation every Monday at 6 a.m because I want to find how the repetitive nature of this presentation might lead to like accessing the flow state as like a trigger, the repetitiveness being a flow trigger. Um, so like that's what you're in for. And I hope you get a lot of value from it. Who I am, I've been in August, it'll be 11 years since I've been a business owner. I run a web and brand design practice. I'm also somebody who has like inconsistent energy patterns. Sometimes I'm like really energetic and I just get a lot done. And other times I just absolutely crash and veg and knit and watch Netflix. Like that's my chill pattern, right? I would also consider myself to be hugely ambitious. Even with those inconsistent energy patterns, I do set a lot of goals. I have a lot of targets that I'm like headed towards. And I think that's all important to know in this like soup of information and theory that I'm going to present to you. It's like, yes, you might have a theory, but who is the person? What is the experience in life that like really educated this? I'm somebody who really is ambitious, who wants to do a lot, but has seen a disconnect sometimes in like the energy that I have available to it. And it makes me scratch my head. Why am I so passionate about this thing one moment and then the other moment I just am completely like I don't care about it. I just I just want a nap. Um and really dissecting flow and individual flow triggers has been very helpful for that. I'm also somebody who's experienced burnout along with pretty much everybody else that I know. And this informs the type of flow that I chase after and how I chase after flow. And I will go into that a little bit before we talk about the good stuff, which is chasing flow. So let's talk about like the kind of gnarlier aspects of being an ambitious person in this world, which is burnout. And I believe burnout starts with a high capacity person. This is not the person that you like invite to a potluck and you say, "Oh, just bring the napkins" or something like that. Like there's expectations on this person. This person can produce, this person can perform, this person can um like is known as somebody who can do a thing or things very well or to a high capacity. And that's important because I don't think it happens to people who, don't have that ambition, aren't engaged in the same way, don't have that like people pleasing tendency. Because the second part of like a pattern of burnout is a person is given praise for their high capacity, for the thing that they do, a specific thing. Praise can mean compensation, recognition, like all the different things that we actually need to survive capitalism, to like fill our emotional cups. We learned that the things that we do in high capacity that earn praise might be more valuable than the things that we are naturally interested in, called to want to flow with. And that combination of high capacity and then praise for certain things, because as a society, we just are incapable of recognizing like the whole human contribution, right? That this really can lead to burnout. And when burnout happens, it is so painful that it can lead to a lot of unconscious behavior. And interestingly enough, the process to understanding how to chase flow as opposed to chasing goals is to make that unconscious behavior even more conscious, which can be kind of a painful process. Um, this is what I believe informed my interest in studying flow because I had witnessed this pattern in myself and in people that I love of really high capacity, smart, capable people being praised for a certain thing that was valued by an organization, work, by the family structures, and then a part of them not being recognized, like a part of their soul not being recognized, them leading into burnout. And then the piecing back behavior of becoming more and more conscious and following more of those like impulses and instincts in order to find flow. So now we get to talk about chasing flow, and this is what that means. I'll briefly describe how I conceptualize the flow state, which might or might not help you to get into that flow state more readily yourself. Um, because it's like just so trippy and fun to me. I'll talk about some of like the neurotransmitter surge that's happening, like your brain in the flow state, because broadly, I think we can all accept that there is something very different going on in our bodies when we're in a juicy work session or we're watching a performance or in like the flow state. And I want to talk a little bit about what's happening there. And then to bring it back to the core theory that I'm presenting, which is like how to chase flow. And I believe that because this is like an individual process, that it all comes down to radical self acceptance and alignment. And that alignment is the goat of flow triggers. Like there's all this science and work has been trying to analyze what can get a unproductive employee into this productive flow state. And alignment and self acceptance, my theory is those are the best flow triggers. And hopefully, after the end of this presentation, you will have a better sense for yourself what your own flow triggers are, or at least an approach on how to find them. This is how I conceptualize what flow is. Maybe this is more of like a conceptualization about like what like doing a task or being in a place where flow can be present, where it's like all complete focus and absorption. Let's call that. When you're just in it, you're very focused, you're very engaged with what you're doing. Time starts to get a little like time bendy. What is that? I thought that it was only 15 minutes and 2 hours has passed, or you're just like so engaged in a performance, like something. We just had the World Cup. Congratulations, Spain, on your second all-time World Cup win. Um, like being part of that audience was definitely like, I bet people in the audience reported complete focus and absorption, like awe, right? And so what I conceptualize flow to be is that we all have this comfort zone. And at the center of our comfort zone, there are no questions. Everything is known. There's complete assurance of safety and familiarity. And then when we go towards the outside of our comfort zone, that's when things like, I don't know, curiosity, right? I don't know what's going to happen if, but there might be a reasonable presumption behind that like things are good. And then when we travel further and further and further from the center of our comfort zone, we are engaged and curious. There is a biological response to that feeling of uncertainty. We have like a slight or significant cortisol response, and that kind of like kickstarts a lot of the things. We're just a little bit more on edge as we travel further and further from the center of our comfort zones. And I believe that that distance, be it creatively, be it even, I don't know if my team in this World Cup match is going to win or not, but I'm here and maybe still tethered to that comfort zone. Like I know I'm safe no matter if, Argentina wins or whatever. And so as we're like traveling further and further from our comfort zone, this is where the potentiality for flow happens, where we're engaging with our curiosity, but we're still reasonably assured that we're safe or we can figure it out. Mountain climbing. Stephen Kotner is a journalist who's done an extensive amount of research on the flow state, and he was also a extreme sport journalist in the 90s when they were like, like taking a motorcycle over the Grand Canyon or skateboards or whatever. Um, Anywho, he studied this like very, very far from the center of a person's comfort zone to like Johnny Way skating over the Great Wall of China, right? No assurity of safety. And yet, reporting this, just being so in it, not being able to feel pain. Apparently, his first attempt like broke all these bones, pretty significant if you're trying to land and stabilize after jumping on a skateboard. Broke all those bones, went back and did it again. And didn't feel any pain reportedly. Um, that is kind of like the magic of the flow state, right? It's the complete focus and absorption, and we are removed further and further from our comfort zone. As an artist, we experience this too in our creative process. Like when we are adding elements to a design or canvas, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Like we could introduce something that really makes the last 8 hours of our work just, kind of like you have to rework it or it doesn't work or something like that. Like there is an element of risk, right? But that is the potentiality as we come further and further from our comfort zones to really engage in the flow process, all the way up to dysregulation. And it took me 7.5 months to figure out that dysregulation isn't spelled like that. It's DY. So if you're seeing this, I will fix it by next time. But this dysregulation zone is not necessarily this like boogeyman bad thing. We all have some form of dysregulation. It could even be as simple as like I'm thirsty. So all the regulation is going, or all of our attention is now flowing towards the regulation of our bodies. And that can be on a small scale, big scale, emotional, physical, what be it. But that just means that the body needs to, or the mind needs to engage with the regulation of the body. No big deal. The big deal, though, is your brain on flow. And this is like, it is incredible to me that as a response to your environment, your brain is producing this so that it can adapt with the situation. I just find this incredible. So you're in this slightly stressful situation, moving further and further from your comfort zone. Your brain supplies this neurotransmitter response as a way to perform as a human to survive differently. And part of this is that you're getting a surge of dopamine, norepinephrines, endorphins, and anandamines. And this is really fun because these are the chemicals that are like the building blocks of a lot of the street drugs that we have. And by the way, when you're in a flow state, they're able to track this. or calculate this, you're getting a higher level surge of these drugs than you would if you took the street equivalent. So your brain is making these for free and it's safe somehow. Like this is actually evolutionary. The way the human body has said it is safe to respond to stress is providing you all of these neurotransmitters. And the result is like we feel a little time bendy because the prefrontal cortex, which is really good at like calculating time and how to do things and it should be done this way and not this way. Well, because it's all juiced up on these free drugs, it kind of quiets down. And that's why we have this like altered state, this feeling of being in an altered state when we're in this, you know, productive flow state. So if you're like, wow, it just feels really good. Chasing a goal never felt that good. You are right. So how do you chase flow? Your mechanisms are going to be different than mine because your system, your comfort zone, the things that interest you are different than mine. And they're different than your neighbors, your twins, your spouses. And you know this already. So when we talk about how to chase flow, you can chase a goal in a very similar system to another person. Like if you want to lose weight, you're chasing that weight loss goal. It's calories in versus calories out, and there might be a little bit of nuance versus your body, but basic thermodynamics are at play. How you chase flow is going to be similar to like the mechanism of your own soul and your own interests and capacity and the situation, like the here and now. So, but here's some ideas. In this concept of chasing flow versus chasing goals, I really find it helpful to criticize what chasing goals are. And one of the podcasts that I listened to a few weeks, like a week ago, was called The Hidden Cost of Optimizing Everything. It's a podcast from The Atlantic. I'm forgetting the podcast title, but it's with Charlie Warzel. Fantastic podcast. But they had this long conversation about how the energy behind optimizing everything, like you can just get DoorDash, Amazon Prime, it's quickly here. You can set reminders, you can have agentic AI do something for you completely. These are all like some of the things behind optimizing, chasing goals. And that when you have people who have had these like highly optimized lives, report less satisfaction, less connections, and less sense of like community. And the theory is that you are actually optimizing yourself out of the access to the flow state. And so if you think about like goals are for optimizing and flow is more about the internal experience and the drive and the creativity and the curiosity behind that, and just goals don't care about that. So if you are optimizing everything, my argument is that that is why you have less access to the flow state and all these wonderful free drugs and the type of creativity that can come out of this, and the type of like human growth and personal best that you can achieve when you are truly in the flow state. And the absolute best formula for getting into the flow state is not through optimizing and goal setting. I would argue that it's Bashar's The Formula. Bashar is a channeled intelligence by Daryl Anka. You can watch a ton of YouTubes. It is fascinating. But I think that this should be in front of everybody, because you want to ask me, how do you access this flow state? How do you value and believe in the things that interest you and the things that you are passionate about more than maybe the things that are getting praised and compensated by the outer world, so that you can be in flow more this week, more this year, more for the rest of your life, instead of just chasing these goals that might be for everything else. This is the 5-step formula that I believe is like the way to do it. And it's first, act on passion. ADHD brains, they're often called interest-based attention. And that's because if it doesn't interest us, it just almost doesn't even appear on our radar. This is what Bashar is talking about. Like, there has to be this passion and curiosity for like what it is that you are doing. And this is a practice and a muscle that might have been beaten out of you. And I would say this Monday morning at 6:21, like, let's freaking revive it. Act on passion first and trusting that that is your way into flow, that is in your way to like really feeling like you are living your absolute best life. Act on passion first. And then two, act as far until the passion, until the excitement of like what you are doing, it wanes. And this naturally happens as we're moving further and further from our comfort zones. We have bodies, we have needs, we have external things that are happening. Dysregulation is everything from I'm just not excited about it anymore. I'm excited about this other thing. To like, I need to take care of my bodily needs, to I'm really dysregulated. But act as far until the excitement wanes, because it naturally will. Everything has a cycle. So when you're in the flow state, go until you're just naturally like, this is it. Something is complete, or I need something else. 3, act on passion without assumption of outcome. This is the hardest part. I am very Virgo, which means that I love to judge things like this is good, this is bad, like, things are progressing, things are not progressing. I have a lot of assumptions about how things should be. And this third one of act on passion without assumption of outcome has made me a better artist, a better flow artist, possibly. Because when you're acting on passion without assumption of outcome, there are naturally things that happen in this flow state. And when you think things are good or things are bad, it almost puts the attention more on the judgment of like, or the assumption of what is happening instead of like being in it. So as you are in this flow state, if you can just put all those judgments and assumptions that like, oh, like this one thing is going to be like really good and this other thing is like not it. When you are in that flow state of curiosity, we just need to remove our assumptions of outcome and any judgments that we have. And for no matter what happens, to stay in this positive state. So just be like, I don't know why this is happening, but this is happening and it is part of it. There's like an acceptance. I did a lot of acceptance and commitment therapy over the winter, and such a wonderful practice for being able to understand when kind of like a wrench gets thrown into the machinery, right? You're going along and life just throws you a freaking curveball. And the ability to have these curveballs thrown at you, to have these situations, and I'm talking like sometimes very, very unpleasant things, to just accept that like this is going on, and to say like, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm assuming that things are going to be all right, or this is happening for a reason, or that um, somehow this is part of the texture of what the solution could look like. No matter what manifests, to stay in a positive state. And as you are in this flow state, as you are being confronted with the challenges and the realities of life, to really like look at it and be like, I'm terrified of this thing. Why am I terrified of it? Like, that is the repair that gets to happen in these flow states, because these flow states are so dynamic and they're so beneficial to our souls and to our brains and to our productivity and our work. we get to have these very intense things happen in the flow state. These intense manifestations can happen in a flow state. And when we can examine those and release our fears or release what we believe it means when these things happen, then we can, this is the complete formula for like how to identify potentiality for flow states for you, how to stay in it, and then how to really heal your soul around work. And yeah, I'm such a big fan of these flow states. And if to learn more about Bashar's formula, I believe is to learn more about creating conditions for yourself where you have better access to flow. And that's what I haven't heard um, in conversations about flow, especially for productivity, are those things about these like this hyper fertile state for potentiality and for creation. It's such a creative place to mentally and physically, neurologically to be. And we have a greater amount of adaptability. And this is another reason why we've heard a lot about flow states within like business and school, because people who are in the flow state are highly adaptable. No matter what happens in the flow state, to just assume that like it's for the good of the outcome or for whatever. So this creativity and adaptability are hallmarks of the flow state. When we are in the flow state, we're constantly getting pulled back into our comfort zone. We're asking a question, the question is becoming somewhat known, and we are sucked back into the center of our comfort zone. These challenges that come in are introduced during the flow state. By accepting those those challenges, it's saying with curiosity, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to try this thing out. You are actually like fueling yourself back into the flow state. So, creativity and adaptability are not only things that you need to expand and accept in the flow state, but they are actually fuel to pull yourself out of the comfort zone, to compel yourself out of the comfort zone, um, and induce a longer flow state. That's my theory. Another foundational belief that I have is that we need a very tethered comfort zone in order to feel like we can travel out of it. And as somebody who's had times in my life where my comfort zone and my dysregulation zone were very, very close to each other, I believe like the core foundation is this known sense that whoever you are, your own stew of talents, experience, and challenges is worthy of acceptance and support. Because I believe that that tethers us enough to the center of our comfort zone where we feel safe as humans and as people to try things. We all know people who just are so threatened by like new things, like new experiences, that they don't travel very far out of their comfort zones. I believe that when you can tether to that radical acceptance and alignment, you have more access to furthering yourself out of your comfort zone and more access to flow. And because when we accept these like new things in a flow state, these new challenges, what we are actually doing is refueling to stay in this flow state where all these things are possible. It is 6:30. It has been a pleasure to do this presentation. I haven't looked at the numbers to see if like anybody has watched these. If you do, thank you. I do these every Monday at 6 a.m. in the morning in 2026, and I will see you next week.